Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is Andy Field, and you are listening to Pop Culture Addicts.
Hello, guys, and welcome back to Pop Culture Addicts. I am Tim. I am your host, and this is a reminder that you are watching and or listening to a show that is made by this here nerd for all you nerds. So I'm glad that you guys are able to stick around with us for a little bit today. Now, our guest off screen is an actor and voice actor with credits such as HandUnit in Five Nights at Freddy's. You've seen or heard him in The Walking Dead, Marvel's Avengers Academy, Avengers Endgame, Paladins, Champions of the Realm, and so much more. Yeah, he's got a really cool IMDb resume there, and we'll include a link down in the show notes down below for you guys to be able to check out his work. Now, in our chat tonight, we'll discuss his origin story, what it's like for him working behind the mic, the lessons he's learned along the way, and his character creation process. Now, that's just a few of the things that we'll touch on. Now, if you're new here, I'm going to encourage you to click that like and follow button. I'd hate for you to miss out on future guests. But at this time, let's all give a warm and rounding applause to our new guest, Andy Field. Welcome to the show, Andy.
That's me clapping there. Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, excellent. All right, so welcome to the show, Andy. I'm glad to have you on Pop Culture Addicts. I'm excited to have a chance to sit down and talk with you. We're going to talk about a few things today, a few of the things you've worked on, a few of the questions I have for you about your profession in general. And we'll kind of go from there to see where the conversation leads us. But the very first question I like to ask anyone, Andy, is about their origin and why they got into the business that they're in. Now, the reason I ask that is for two reasons. Number one, I like to know what makes people tick. You know, why do you do what you do, and why do you keep coming back to this profession? What keeps you locked in? And then secondly, as you may have heard in the introduction, I'm a bit of a nerd, and nerds love a good origin story. So today, Andy, you are the hero of the story. So in the story of Andy Field, what made you say, I need to be an actor and work in entertainment?
And I get that question a lot, and it's funny because for a lot of voice actors, the answer is, I was an actor. I was an actor, and then I discovered the voiceover genre of acting and got into that. Not me. I was a school teacher, and I was broke, and I needed another side hustle. I literally got into acting for the money, and that is not what people normally say. And so I was teaching middle school, and I had always been a public speaker, a good public speaker, and things like that. When I was in the Army, I was always the MC for everything we did, and one day I was imitating our football stadium announcer at the University of Mississippi. And I said, that's another first down. And my wife said, oh my gosh, you should be an announcer guy. And so I went upstairs and Googled, how do you become an announcer guy or something? I mean, I don't even know what the words were. And in 2013, the internet was a thing. And so you didn't have to move to Los Angeles to do it. And I just got started with this laser intensity of reading everything I could read and getting started. And within a few months, I was making enough money to at least pay a bill or two, you know. Nice. And then 3 years later, I quit teaching and quit all of my other side hustles. And it's been my full-time job pretty much ever since.
That's cool. And you're right. That is not the typical answer. Most of the actors and voice actors that I talk, oh, well, I've always known. This has always been a part of me. This is all, I was acting as a kid. I just didn't realize what I was doing. But, I was, making voices and doing characters and all these type of things. That's more the common answer. And then what led them to that? And, it's not usually... Oh, well, I sounded like a football announcer, so I went and Googled.
Oh, yeah. I know voice actors that have master's degrees in acting. And I'm like, I have a master's degree in elementary education. I know a lot about integrating graphing calculators into middle school math.
There you go. But that's pretty much where I gave up on math, was middle school. So no, I get it. All right. So that's cool. So obviously, I mean, you said you got started for the money, and that helped you pay some bills and it helped you get from it being a side hustle to a full-time hustle. But what keeps you planted in the acting and voice acting community? What keeps you coming back? Because even after a little while, if it's a job you don't like, the money's not going to matter.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And I would tell you, so I think the real question there is, what do I like so much about it then? The thing that I like most about it is that I'm my own boss. I'm my own employer. When I was a teacher and when I was other people's employees, you got to do what they say do when they say do it. And if I want to take a 2-hour lunch with my wife, I go take a 2-hour lunch with my wife. And if I want to make a doctor's appointment at 2 p.m, I don't really have to check my calendar. Well, I have to check my calendar, but I don't have to, make sure I don't have a podcast interview with Tim or something like that. But it's really freeing, especially at this later stage in my life where I've actually got some sort of retirement in my sights. It's one thing when you're 25 and you're working, and it's another thing when you're 55 and you're working,
No, I get you. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I went from being, to build you a minor clock to tell you the time. So my daughter has a chronic illness, and I was a stay-at-home dad with her for, 15 some odd years. And so I went from, now she's older and can take care of herself, and I've gone back to work full time, and it's different going from having that freeing schedule to I can do anything I want whenever I want. It's no big deal. You want to go away for a week on vacation? Let's go. Mm-hmm. To hey, can I have tomorrow off? It's a bit of a change. So I do miss that freedom though. That I used to have.
Super nice. And, I still have, in the voiceover industry, we call it the golden handcuffs, or really lots of industries. Sometimes it still is hard to travel. Like I couldn't just say to my wife, hey, today let's pack up and leave for a week. I've got clients that I'm recording for, and some of them are relatively low paying clients, but they come in great volume, and so it's kind of like, I don't want to have to get on the road and then find out that this client that needs me for this one little gig on Wednesday, and here I am in Chicago with no microphone, because I don't want to go rent a $200 an hour studio for a small local car commercial, for example. But those small local car commercials add up, and small radio stations add up, and phone message systems add up. All that voiceover work adds up, and so it's a comfortable living.
All right. Now, over the years, and we're 290 something interviews in total I've done almost 700 interviews over the years. And it's one of the things I've noticed when I'm talking with actors who are also voice actors, or voice actors who are also actors, is that most of them have a preference for being in front of the camera or behind the mic. Do you have a preference for which one that you would prefer to do? If so, and why?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's behind the mic, because I don't want to leave the house. I'm not even wearing pants right now. I'm kidding. I am, but I don't have to.
Right?
That's the thing. But if you're going to be on, and the other thing is, I've established myself as a leader in the voiceover genre. I'm still pretty much entry level on camera. So it's, I mean, sure. Even if I'm filming an audition for something on camera, it's a pain. I don't have my house set up to do that, but there are guys out there that only do movies, and they will do a small movie, a big movie, a medium movie. They don't care. They'll do a local commercial.
Sure.
But I don't want to drive 2 hours to do a public service announcement commercial for the state of Louisiana or whatever, I'm going to go do. And I've done those little things. But I'm just not willing now to go back and be entry level for that. I did audition for the Five Nights at Freddy's movies, both of them.
Right.
But again, I just feel entry level. I mean, I don't have the extensive training and the extensive experience at that stuff. But I sent it in, and it was filmed in Louisiana, which is where I live, and I have a Baton Rouge agent, and so she was able to get me those auditions. And a lot of the fans are like, "Oh man, I can't believe they didn't put your voice in the movie." It's like, no, I auditioned to be the cab driver, or the hotel clerk, or the waiter, or whatever, just a small speaking role in the movie, and so that was
right.
Fun.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your work on Five Nights at Freddy's, which is what you're probably most predominantly known for, because you have been all over that franchise. There's a ton of Five Nights at Freddy's stuff out there, and your name's attached to a lot of it. So when it comes to character creation, even for the stuff that we hear and see on the games and wherever else, do you have a process that you have in place that you use to help you bring your character to life and make them believable?
I don't so much for the characters that I've had in Five Nights at Freddy's, because in 6 of the 7 games I'm in, I am just the computer guide voice. I'm the announcer.
Right.
And over time, that's kind of evolved almost into an 80s infomercial style voice. Are we having fun yet? So fun. But and then in the 7th game, I'm that same voice, but now a human, and so still a guy on the radio. And the running gag in Five Nights at Freddy's, if you don't know it, is it's the worst job ever because you are likely to die, and your employer does not care whatsoever. And I'm part of the employer. I'm part of the employment team, so it's always like, hey, thanks for being part of the Fazbear Entertainment team, and you're like, I just almost died. Fantastic to hear. So anyway, we need you to go down to this next room. And it's just this. So all of those characters are just kind of a humorous. In fact, they're really the only friendly, humorous thing that's going on, because everybody else is trying to kill you in the games. It's like a haunted pizzeria, Chuck E. Cheese style place where everything else is murderous. And then a couple of my other characters in the games are really just characters. There's a pirate. Well, you don't have to dig much to find your pirate character. He's the same pirate that everybody has. But for other characters, when you're really acting, and like one time there was an anti-bullying public service announcement, and I played a gay dad, and I don't go seeking out LGBT roles. I'm not, that is not me. But I had to dig kind of deep to find that. And the guy was upset because his kid was being bullied at school. Well, so in that process, you have to, my kid never really got bullied at school like that. So you got to kind of dig deep and find what really pains you. If you have kids, that's great. But, you find a similar situation that has a similar emotion and pull that emotion out when you're delivering those lines. And then a lot of it is just the experience of being able to take somebody's writing and make it sound like real words that came out of your mouth on the spot. So those are always the harder things, but there's always a process. Find what in you resonate, or what in that character resonates with you, and vice versa. And that's the process to get into a real character.
Okay. So, like I said, having spoke with other voice actors over time, one of the questions I've asked them about this process feature is that, so like especially when it comes to like animes and some other things, when there's a character creation, sometimes they're given a bio, sometimes they're just given a drawing, sometimes they're just given direction from the director saying, yeah, this is kind of what I want you to sound like. If you have your druthers, is there something that you like to get? Do you want a drawing of the character? Do you want a bio of the character? What helps you get that ability to suss out what is going to be real for you with that character?
I love the pictures. The pictures, a picture's worth 1,000 words, they say, and I think that's true. Sometimes they give you a bio, and it either feels like it was AI generated, or it feels like they just wrote and rambled about this person, and you're like, you gave me 3 paragraphs about this person that says he's easy to talk to but standoffish, and that he's conversational but formal, and that he's got a lot of pain in his past but outwardly cheerful. And it's just like, what? I don't, you've given me so much, and you're wanting me to do an audition, so it's like a 30-second audition. It's not, you've given me, and I know other actors are like, I create entire backstories for my characters if I don't have one. I'm like, we don't even know what we want to do with this character yet. Most of the time in an audition, they're just kind of listening, even if your voice is right. That's kind of number one. And then what did you do with it? So give me a picture. Give me a little bit about this guy. Tell me what he does for a living.
Sure.
Is he a dad? That kind of thing. But sometimes it's paragraphs, and that's a little much, especially when I know that you're probably still trying to hash this character out too. But if you don't give me too much, then I can give you maybe 3 takes of what I think about this character. I can say, well, here's take 1, and I think he's a little dark. And here's take 2, and I think he's a little flippant. And here's take 3, and I did my terrible impression of Gandalf, or whatever, and it's, and all of those may be viable. My real goal is for you to say, I liked all three of those so much, I don't know what to do. But that's rare that you nail all three.
Sure. Okay. All right. So using that process outside of the Five Nights at Freddy's, because like you said, most of those are computer style voices and directional voices and things like that. Has there been a character for you that you just, you saw it on the page and it leapt off at you and you're like, yes, I was born to play this character. I can nail this.
Well, I will say that Dispatch, the guy in the very last Five Nights at Freddy's game, the human, and by the way, that game's a prequel, so the fan theories are all that this human voice in the most recent game, Secret of the Mimic, is the precursor to all the computer voices in the games that actually came before,
Right.
but this one's a prequel. I love him, his ambivalence to whether you live or die. He is the embodiment of don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff, especially when it doesn't affect me. That's
right.
I hate to say that's how I am in real life. I mean, obviously I don't want people to die.
I get what you mean though.
But I have to put forth a lot of effort to be empathetic to people. I mean, it doesn't come naturally to me. And maybe it's from years in the military, or maybe just years in the military agreed with me because I was already like that. But the game opens up with, hey, this is Dispatch from Fazbear Entertainment. We've got a job for you. And he's like, are you kidding me? I just came off a 30-hour shift. And I'm like, I know the grind is exhilarating, right? Anyway, we need to, it's just love that spirit. So, or maybe it's just, that's how I handle, I mean, I'm a dad too. So when your kids just complain, that's kind of
well, yeah, that'll get you.
Yeah.
Well, and you were teaching middle school too. That'll scar a human just strong enough. I used to sell doors and hardware, as an architectural hardware salesperson years ago. And when I would service middle schools, I was always like, this is a small town prison. And the doors and hardware need to be prison grade, because all the years I went through middle school, I don't think I ever saw one kid ever go through the door with, the exit device, the crash bar on it with their hand. It was always a foot, a bag, throwing a buddy into it, or something else. And just, it's just like watching them and you go, wow, okay. So kudos to you for being in that environment day in, day out.
Yeah. And, I think you're right. It's, I've spent a lifetime handling complaints that are really kind of non-complaints,
Right.
Your own children, like when an 8-year-old says to you, that makes me mad. And you're just like, well,
okay,
you're just going to have to get glad in the same pants you got mad in. So, middle schoolers are the same, and really soldiers are the same. Soldiers, they always say that if soldiers aren't complaining, you're not doing your, then it's not a good day in the army. And so it's always just kind of, and so Dispatch is the same way, even though your complaints are valid, because you almost died,
right?
You're trapped in this building with murderous animatronics, and, it's just kind of funny. It's enjoyable.
All right. And real quick for our listeners, if you're enjoying this conversation, don't forget to click that like and follow button. It's a big help to us. All right. So we talked about your background in teaching. Now, I also read that in your bio that you were also an EMT. And long ago.
Yeah.
And that you served some time, obviously, in the Army, in the infantry. So how do these portions of your life influence and inform not only the jobs you take, but the characters that you create?
That's good. That's a good question. The EMT, I enlisted in the Army as a medic. And so then I was an EMT on an ambulance service and things like that. You meet, you would think it's the medical part of being an EMT and the military part of being a soldier, but it's the fact that you meet so many people who are also doing this, and they're from such diverse walks of life, and they all kind of go into your book of characters that you have in your mind all the time. I did get a role as an EMT in a video game recently, and I would like to say it was because of my authenticity as an EMT, but it's not. It's because the game developer was a Five Nights at Freddy's fan. That's why I got that role.
Fair enough.
I would like to say I book soldier roles left and right in video games, and I don't. And I think the problem is that I know what soldiers sound like, and Hollywood does not. And
Fair.
I have a hard time bridging that gap. It's just I could teach you how to sound authentic, but that doesn't mean that that's what that video game developer or that animation producer wants you to sound like.
Sure.
Everything's a little cheesy, which is why soldiers have hard times watching things anyway. But man, you collect some stories and some characters in your mind that are just fun, and it does help you to be a little more authentic. If somebody's in a stressful situation that they've handled a million times before, I definitely know what that feels like and sounds like, and that comes up a lot. Pilots, when they're dropping bombs on somebody, they're not that excited when they hit the target. They've done that 8,000 times in a simulator. It's just kind of like target destroyed, returning to base. It's just like another day of the office, like refueling complete. It just, you say it in the same tone of voice, just killed 80 people, refueling complete, headed back to base. It's just, it's, so there is a little bit of that, just the notion that you've done it a million times and it's routine. So that helps, I think.
Do you mean to tell me that pilots don't scream wahoo when the bomb drops and high five each other and, break out Cokes all the way around and then fly the plane back? I don't.
Maybe fighter pilots, because it is pretty exciting. Well, you get into a dogfight and that's pretty exciting. That's like what you've been waiting for forever, for a real dogfight. But a bomber, you just got, I don't know that your life is ever in danger as a bomber. There's no real adrenaline. You're like, there it is, hit the button. Let's go.
Okay, bye.
I knew of guys who had combat tours in Desert Storm from Louisiana, and they never landed. They flew from Louisiana to Saudi Arabia, dropped a bomb, refueled mid-flight, and flew home, and now they're a combat veteran. And I'm like, there's a whole different mindset in that one than there is, let's say, in a tank commander who's out there, maneuvering and
sure.
In the thick of it.
Yeah, on the ground in the thick of it. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I have to ask you about this because this was also in the bio of you that I read. And I want to believe that there's an amazing story behind this other than just I was doing my job as a soldier. So here goes. In your bio, it listed that you were driving a vehicle with $480 million in it. And my two thoughts were, why have we ever seen this man again? And secondly, I just have to know the story. So what's going on there? How did that happen? Where did we go?
So this was probably this was 2003, and the Army had, in one of Saddam Hussein's palaces, found $480 million cash. Some of it was in euros, most in $100 bills, and they had seized it. And so then my unit was in charge of flying into Iraq and getting it and bringing it back to Kuwait, and counting it, a lengthy process to count $480 million. And so I was in charge of the movement of all that. So I had to find enough trucks and enough military police officers. And, it's funny, I had about 15 trucks in the convoy, and I was the only guy from my unit. And I was in charge of the whole thing. Like, I didn't need any of my own soldiers for this. I needed transportation and military police. And so we flew into Iraq. We got $480 million on a couple, forklifts of money, in boxes this big, probably, I don't know, 40, 50. And we put it back on trucks and drove it in big trucks that were open. They didn't even have roofs. They had rails on the side. Just drove them down the highways of Kuwait. Nobody out there on the highway knew what they were driving next to. It was crazy. And then we had to send somebody into Kuwait City to buy money counters. We had some, but they had sat unused for so long. You don't use money counters in war very often. And so all the belts in them were dry rotted. So somebody went and spent about $10,000 on bill counters. And we had soldiers in a round the clock, like 3-day rotation. We would bring them food. They couldn't even leave the building.
Holy hell.
And they were just running bills through counters all day long. And it was about $480 million, almost $500 million. It's crazy.
Wow. And that was just laying around and
I took a picture with $1 million just to say, here's $1 million. It's crazy. But no, there was no taking it. But it's funny because that was your initial reaction too, is why haven't we ever seen this? Why did we ever see this guy again? And everybody's like, I know you took some of that. And that's everybody's first inkling. And you've just got to
Well, yeah.
distance yourself from that and say, that's monopoly money. That's not even real. It's certainly not mine. But I can see the mentality of the Wild West bank robbers. They were like, there's cash in there. I would like the money. And they went and they figured out a way to get it. There were so many guys going to jail from having attempted to steal that money. So I don't know how many successfully stole some. But I know that high-ranking people went to jail, lots of them, and low-ranking people. In fact, one of them was a truck driver that had the money on the truck. He had $400,000 in the glove box.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I know. That was, which is only takes up about that much room. It's 100,000 is only about that big.
Yeah, I always love it in movies when, they're like, I've got $100,000 for it. They break out a suitcase and it's like, and they open it up and I'm like,
is it in 20s? Is it in 5s?
It's like, it's all singles underneath that top bill. It has to be.
Interestingly, we also, I had quite a few missions that were in the millions, but we had one where they flew in $120 million from DC and they had to do an in-flight refuel with that. And it was all in like 1s, 5s, 10s, and 20s and $30,000 worth of quarters. And it was because when you're dealing with an impoverished portion of the world, you can't just hand somebody $100 bill. You've given them like their year's wages sometimes.
There'd be no way for them to break that.
Right. Well, and like the Marines wanted to pay their interpreters a quarter a day. And they would line all their interpreters up at the end of the day and give them all a quarter and send them home. And they were like, just give them a $20 bill. And they're like, sir, Ahmed with a $20 bill is just going to leave and we'll never see him again and go to some other base and see if we can get another $20 bill. It's like 3 months pay for him. And so I'm like, yeah, I could see that. So it was funny how we had to do all that. But we needed small bills, and that took up much more room than $480 million did. $480 million was really fit in the back of one truck. 120 million was 13 trucks, and most of them had money in them. It was crazy. But it was
especially if it was going a smaller denomination in coins, then absolutely. Okay.
It was crazy.
Yeah, that's an interesting story, and thank you for sharing it. But I was, like I said, I saw that in your bio, and I'm like, oh, we're talking about that. Gotta ask him about that. All right, so I'm gonna throw another question at you that I've asked other voice actors in the past, especially when they've got a pretty decent range of characters. And this is more for funsies than anything. But now, if you had to pick two of your characters to team up to either, and this is dealer's choice. So would you want your two characters to team up to protect the world or take over the world? And what two characters that you have given voice to would you choose?
Oh, I think take over. And the reason I say that, and I'm going to stick with only Five Nights at Freddy's characters on this. So first of all, we're going to use Big Top. Big Top is my animatronic in the latest game. He's 20 feet tall. He's a beast. He like comes down through ceilings. So there's your brawn, Big Top. And he only says one thing. He says, tickets, please. But he says it in different ways, kind of like the way Groot only says, I am Groot.
Right.
But he says it different ways. So it's pleasant the first time. So Big Top is the brawn of this all. And then I think we're going to go with the Mimic, who I think is the brain of everything. And so Dispatch, the character that I play, his name is Dispatch. But somewhere around the middle of the game, he's taken over by the Mimic. And the Mimic is kind of this brain that's kind of, I don't know, there's fan theories that the Mimic is in all of the games, in all, dozen or 14 or 15 of them there are now. But I think those two have a shot at it. I think they could possibly take over the whole thing. And I'm only just now, like in past few days, decided maybe sort of somewhat I maybe voice the Mimic. I mean, everybody voices the Mimic. If the Mimic takes over your character, you're still the voiceover for the Mimic, so lots of people voice the Mimic, but I think those two characters. I think that's it.
All right. So you have, just like anybody else, I'm sure that you have a busy schedule, and there are times when you need to be able to let the hair down, so to speak. It looks like you've let all your hair down, but where we have to be able to find ways to relax and recharge our batteries to be able to move on, do the next thing. So in Andy Field's world, what does recharging the batteries look like? What do you do to make that happen?
Well, I love to travel lately, especially to Mexico. I've been like, I don't know, 5 or 6 states in Mexico now. I love Mexico. I like to read, but I think I've got ADD or something. I've got lots of books with a bookmark in chapter 2. like probably 4 of them stacked up on the nightstand right now, all with a bookmark in them. I like to smoke meats. That's just something I've discovered recently. Like in less than a year, I've been, oh man, I can make a brisket.
Okay.
Or pulled pork. Oh man, thinking about it now. Thinking about what I need to go smoke now.
Meat.
Yeah, meat. But you know, I kind of go through hobbies. Like a few years ago, I was really into camping. I had a big camper, and I used to go out in the boat a lot. My boat's been in the driveway for 3 years now. It's just so I don't know. I haven't settled. I've got grandkids, and so that's, you know, a lot of my time is spent figuring out how to go see them. In fact, I'm trying to move this year to be closer to some of them. I've got 3 kids and 3 grandkids so far.
Nice.
I think we're done with the kids, but the grandkids, I think are good. I think there's gonna be more than 3. That certainly looks that way. So that's fun. But yeah, it's just kind of living the life, and you know, just kind of living the dad life is what it sounds like, right? We go to Mexico, we smoke some meat, go see the grandkids. That's my life right now.
That's not a bad gig if you can get it.
No,
not a bad gig at all. I'm absolutely. I understand about the grandkids. I had my first grandchild 2 years ago, and that little sucker is just as cool as they can be. I love that little boy. Just, he is so much fun, and every chance I get to see him, go do something with him, yes, let's make it happen. Yes, Grandpa's there. 100%. So he calls me Papa, and I am down with that. Let's be Papa.
That is my grandpa name too.
Yeah, so
I am Papa. Only one of my 3 can say it yet. The other ones are all. I've got the 2 younger ones are 8 months and 6 months, but my oldest is 2.5, and she can talk. She talks a lot.
Yeah,
she's about the age of yours.
Yeah, my grandson is just a little over 2 right now, and
so fun.
One of my favorite things with him right now is that if we do, because he lives about 2.5 hours away from us, so we do video calls, and he'll take the phone from his mom or his dad and put it in his dump truck so it's looking straight up at me. Nice. And he wants to take Papa for a ride, and he runs through the house steering his dump truck by the rails and doing the noise like the whole time, and it's just, and then he'll stop and go, "Having fun, Papa?" "Yep, let's keep going." So
yeah, mine likes to hang up. She knows what the red button does, and so she said, "I'm gonna hang up," and then you know, my daughter has to call me back. Say, "Sorry about that," but yeah, that's just,
I love it.
The best. And so yeah, I live way too far from them, which is why we're trying to move to Nashville this year.
Okay.
2 daughters and a granddaughter in Nashville, 1 daughter and 2 granddaughters in Chicago, which is drivable from Nashville. Neither one are drivable from where I am now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
much closer, much more manageable.
That's the life
from there. All right. Well, Andy, so far you have answered all of my questions admirably, but it's time for our silly question.
Yes.
Okay. So it's really not all that silly, if I'm being 100% honest. So I mentioned earlier that we were talking about my live show co-host, Kathleen. Now, her and her daughter are out and about. Somebody asked her daughter this question, but didn't ask Kathleen. And Kathleen was like, "Well, that's rude. You should never age out of this question." So now you're probably wondering, what is that question? That question is, Andy Field, what's your favorite dinosaur?
Oh, that's interesting. And, you know, I'm not a huge, I liked dinosaurs a lot when I was a kid, and I think it was always the Triceratops. They're just kind of cool. Yeah, I think that's it. I don't even know how to elaborate on that. Other than that, they just look cool, you know? Absolutely.
That's why I'm a fan. So actually, my fandom with them began and I've said this on other podcasts, we were talking about this. I was a big fan of rhinos. Still am. I think rhinos are awesome.
Yeah.
And, you know, so they've got the 1 or the 2 horns. And then I was like, then I realized at one point that rhinos or Triceratops had 3 horns. And I was like, triple rhino. All right, let's do this.
That's right.
So yeah, you can't convince me that rhinos aren't modern day dinosaurs. I don't care. That's my fight. That's what I'm sticking with.
Okay.
So
very good. That's cool.
That's the hill I will die on. Well,
nice.
One of them anyway. All right. Well, Andy, thank you so much for being on Pop Culture Addicts today. Where can my listeners and viewers go to find out more about you, your work, whatever you've got coming up next?
Well, I'm easy to find, especially on social media. That's probably the best place to go. If you want to hire me, go to andyfieldvoiceover.com. But if you just want to see like what's going on with Five Nights at Freddy's and Comic Cons and all that stuff, my TikTok account is my biggest one. I'm a little active on Instagram and YouTube also, but TikTok is blowing up. So that's the place to be.
What's your user handle on TikTok?
Man, I don't even know. Andy Field voice actor. I had to look at my sign back there. Andy Field voice actor.
All right. Very cool. Well, I'll make sure that we share some links down below, not only to your website, so that folks can hire you for whatever they'd like to hire you for, but we'll also put some of your social handles down there, as well as I'm going to include your IMDb resume, because I want people to be able to see all the things that you've been a part of, so they can check out where you're going and what you got going on. Okay.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Hey, thank you for watching and or listening today. Be sure to follow Andy Field on all of their socials. And please, if you've enjoyed what you heard, click that like and follow button. And hey, if you're a true pop culture addict like me, then you might want to consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform, wherever you listen to your audio, on whatever audio device you listen to. Or you can just leave a comment right here on YouTube, and that helps me out a ton as well. So, guys, thank you for watching and or listening. Thank you to Andy Field for being on the show today. And until next time, nerds, may the force be with you as you continue to live long and prosper. Goodbye! Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Pop Culture Addicts. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@pcapod.com.